Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about no-nos for junior software engineers. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, what are some big no-nos, things that you shouldn't do as a junior software developer? Well, you should be on good footing with your more experienced coworkers or like your coworkers as much as possible. That's a very big thing. And it can be a really hard thing as well. I'm very sorry to say. I wish this wasn't so, but it is. Uh, I have a friend who I try to help out, uh, coaching a little bit uh, in through his career as a software developer. He's a junior developer, and I actually met him through YouTube, which is fun. And he has a life story, like a career story, that I can only describe as almost nightmarish, at least from my perspective, hearing him out. I mean, there's always two sides of every story, of course, but I do believe that this, he seems to be genuine. So I do believe that all of this has happened. And he finds himself in a situation where he he can't really, he has more experienced coworkers that are a bit, let's call it, poisonous, and he has been sabotaged a few times and he's not being treated all that fairly and so forth. And the other day he was asking me about what can he do, like what can he do when he's in this environment, and I said, well, I'm very sorry to tell you that the only two options you have is either to quit that company, or like to, you can of course raise it to your manager, but I'm assuming that you have, because that would be the first natural thing to try to talk about it. In my experience, I'm very sorry to say though, if you've already gotten to a point where a team like that exists and management hasn't stepped in yet, you can, of course, it can just be that they haven't paid attention to it, but it's very unlikely that the situation is going to change anytime soon. People don't change that radically, especially not quickly. So the thing I told him was that you can either change your environment or you're gonna have to muscle through. Because the problem of being a junior software developer is that until you get to a mid-level or a semi-senior level, you are dependent in many cases on your coworkers, or you're dependent on other stakeholders. So if you get into a software company, like the thing that you shouldn't do is to get into a position where nobody's willing to help you out or answer questions or anything like that. Because if you get to that point, it's really bad for you. And in his case, I'm very sorry. He has to treat every situation practically as just a it's just a shitty experience, but he needs something from his coworker. In other words, unless his coworker is literally withholding information from him, then of course he needs to step it up and like go to management. He's gonna just have to look at this as something. It's like having a really unpleasant sergeant or something like that when you're trying to get through the military. You just have to deal with this asshole until you have the training that you need, so you never have to think about that idiot ever again. And it's for him, it's going to be the same thing. If we reverse this, on the other hand, and say, all right, you're under normal circumstances, you're just a junior developer, the same thing applies. If you have nice coworkers and so forth, the first and foremost thing for you is to listen and try to learn from your environment before you come and try to know better than everybody else, or you try to improve all the things at the same, and all of this stuff. Because the thing is, I just don't know how many times I've had this conversation. If there are any experienced developers watching this, have you ever heard these things? Oh, you're using blank, or you're doing blank. Don't you know about blank? It's much better than blank. And you guys kind of sit there and you go, I was just trying to show you how the system works. I'm not an idiot. I know that these things that these things exist, but that doesn't change the fact that this code is working the way it's working. Are you Do you want to have a conversation about what we could be doing, or like how much better all these things that you have like a skin deep understanding of is? Or do you want to learn how to survive in this company? Usually they want to talk. Yeah, well, in many cases, they just want to talk about all the things they've read on a blog post or all the things that a TikTok presentator has said to them that you should be doing this because if you're not doing that, you're absolute garbage. And I just kind of like I've gone from trying to change their mindset about this to just accepting that it's like talking to a teenager or something like that. I can only give them some hints as to like what the answer. Honestly, in many cases, it feels like this is the thing that Yoda does like in these like kung fu masters do when they give like the main character who is trying to grow up or become a master some vague cryptic answer to their life question. And I always when I was a kid I never understood why they did that, and now as more of an adult at the very least I've started to suspect that they do that because they know that they can't explain life and experience to this person. All they can do is to let that person guide them in the right direction and then let them grow and gain the experience through mistakes and failures and so forth. And then usually by the end of that journey, the 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 cryptic message that they gave to that person starts to make sense to the individual when they are ready for the answer, if that makes sense. And that's exactly what I try to do. I try to be Yoda for my junior coworkers. I just tell them that you should think about these things, and then I kind of go, and you are absolutely right. There are many better ways of doing this, but this is the way we're doing it here, and if you have any way of doing it better, please come with those suggestions. Because if I tell them that, I know that they will go and try to improve it, either they will ignore it and actually be too lazy about it. I've had those as well. They just really like to say smart things, or they like to hear the sound of their own voice, so they come in, they chime in, and I've seen this happen many times. Like the weirdest thing ever, in the middle of a big meeting where I'm holding a presentation for the entire company, trying to explain a approach that we're going to use. This person comes in and said, "You know what would be really cool if we did this as well?" And I go, "Yeah, that would be really cool, but it doesn't really have anything to do with what we're saying. Like, are you suggesting that we should do that?" No, no, I just think it would be really cool. Okay, and then we had this like it became this awkward silence all of us, and I go, "Okay, that's cool. You and me, we can talk afterwards, and then maybe you can make a proposal. But I think that we should stay on point until we have reached the conclusion of my presentation." And then he never came back. We never talked about it again because it wasn't really. He just wanted to shim in there that he knew about something, I suppose, but not like afterwards. He didn't really care anymore. So that's that's definitely an outcome that you can have with some software developers. So what I want you to take away from this is that a big no-no for a junior engineer, I would say, is to get into a position where either people are not willing to help you or like you can't get access to more experienced developers in the domain of your company, because it's really, really important in the early days that you get coaching from people who know things about the industry, because you don't really know all that much. You may think that you know a lot of stuff, but I promise you, you don't know all that much. And the seniors and the more experienced developers, they know things that you don't even know that you don't know, and that's very important for you in the early days. So if you're like my friend in a situation where you don't really feel comfortable in your environment, that's a really sucky position to be in. So you can either switch jobs, or you're going to have to get sharp elbows and just go, "Well, I actually need you to tell me this, and I know that you don't want to, but I don't care because you need to tell me. And if you're unwilling to tell me, I'm going to report you to my manager." Like that's if they really are obnoxious seniors. But if you, on the other hand, you actually have normal circumstances and you're in a good environment, try your best to understand that the seniors or the more experienced developers who are already working there, they're not necessarily interested all the time in hearing about all the things. And most of them actually know about the tools that you think that they don't know about. Uh, but when they're trying to educate you, try to listen, because your survival in the company is not based around if you know a bunch of tech talk tools. It's about you being able to produce results. And if you are wasting time trying to convince people who are trying to educate you how the system works in all the other ways you could do this, it's really only hurting you. your suggestions might be very valid, but before you come in and try to change everything, learn how it works first. When you know how the system works, even if it's shit, then you can change it. But don't try to go the other way around. Have a great day.